Today's show is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform to help you stand out in 2025.
Today we asked the question, is your watch too big?
Trigger alert.
Let's get into it! Okay everyone, now listen, this is just for entertainment purposes. I'm not having a go at anybody. At the end of the day, we all have our likes and dislikes, what we think doesn't suit us and what we think suits us the best. But over time, have a lot of us been programmed over the years to think that some watches are too small for us. Now, I've been doing YouTube for quite a few years now, and I get constant comments coming in saying,
why don't you wear a man-sized watch? That's a great watch for ladies. That watch is perfect for spaghetti wrists.
Classic comments like that I see all the time. Now, before I go into my little rant, let me just build it up with a little bit of, I don't know, context. Something you don't see a lot from the MWC. But if it wasn't for World War I and then World War II, probably none of us would be wearing watches now. Men, anyway. It was a necessity that every serviceman had a wristwatch. Now, after the Second World War, corporals, soldiers, majors, generals, colonels continued to wear their watches in normal civilian life. And this was basically the culture start of men wearing watches. A sign of luxury in a watch was basically its size. And the smaller watch you had, the more refined and luxurious it was. And in actual fact, companies were in competition with each other to see who could make the smallest mechanical watches. And anyone wearing a watch over 34 millimeters, well, it wasn't heard of. Now, before I go any further, let me talk to you about today's sponsor, who are Squarespace. They are the all-in-one website platform to help you stand out and succeed in 2025. Whether you're enhancing a hobby or starting a brand new business, Squarespace makes it an absolute piece of cake to basically make your dream website. You might have a product that needs to be seen by the masses, but if you haven't got a decent website, well, you're not going to get paid much attention. Well, Squarespace can definitely do a fantastic job of elevating whatever you're trying to sell. There are so many easy to follow templates to choose from, and the instructions on how to use these templates and website options are very easy. What I really love is the AI blueprint feature, where all you have to do is type in a few words and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, you've got yourself an absolutely banging website, which you can still customize. Hit the link in the description below where you can get 10% off your first purchase or website domain. And listen, if you really want to make it happen in 2025 and make that side hustle an actual business reality, then choose Squarespace to make it happen. Anyway, in comes the 1950s and the boom of the tall sports watch. This was because people were wearing their watches, going swimming, doing DIY gardening, playing around with magnets, and unfortunately the watches were breaking down. So companies decided to make watches that you could wear diving, you could wear in the sky, and watches that you could use around magnets. But in order to do that, the watches had to increase in size. Now, there have always been big watches, like the Fliegers for the Luftwaffe in World War II. They were absolutely humongous. And let's not forget Panerai watches, which were also humongous. Those watches were used as, I know, a part of a uniform. Because after these guys did a day's work, I could have bet you thousands that none of them would still be wearing them clubbing on a Saturday night. Whereas now, most of us don't dive, most of us don't fly, but we use these watches in our everyday life and clubbing on a Saturday. The sports watch hit an all-time high in the 60s. Seiko had just smashed into the Western market, and by this time you could buy a watch for literally any situation. Unfortunately, it's the horrible 70s that has a lot to answer for. Now, this decade was far more progressive, far more industrial and innovative, or over-innovative for anyone's liking. Buildings changed, social culture changed, sci-fi was huge, and watch brands were really over-experimenting on their watch sizes. The 1970s Speedmaster is the perfect example of a lot of things that were bad going on in the 70s. Midway through the 70s, the quartz crisis hit, and the likes of Rolex, Audemars Piguet, Patek. All the big Swiss brands doubled down on luxury. Their watches came down in size and the movements were now being housed in precious metals. And although the lesser Swiss brands like your Tissot and Certinas didn't use precious metal cases, they did try to mirror the trends these Swiss brands were doing at the time. And the Swiss watch market just got more and more luxurious. And by the end of the 80s, it was a status symbol, not only in terms of quality of the watch, but how well you were doing in life. Now we come to the 1990s, where everything is big and bold. Brands like Breitling had a huge boom in the 90s and noughties, as well as Panerai. You know, if you've got a Panerai, you're an action hero, you know?
Could you just click that like button, please? It really helps the channel. Thank you.
Now we come to 2025. Luxury brands are doubling down not only on precious metals, but complications. The F91 is still more accurate than any of them will ever be, and still only a tenner, but we're in this weird trend world at the minute where every size is in. Some reviewers are saying 39mm size watches are the new 36, but if Tudor are anything to go by with this year's releases, who have brought out 43mm watches, who knows where the trend is going. Now, I have a 6.5-inch wrist. It's below the average size. And no matter how much exercise I've given it, you know what I mean? It's still 6.5 inches. I know there are certain watches I cannot wear. Nothing looks worse than a watch with a lug to lug that goes over the size of someone's wrist. I've said this before on a couple of shows, but the secret size dimension to a watch is the dial size. I know if the dial size is under 30mm, the watch itself is going to sit well on my wrist and not look out of place. But let's talk about watch movements for a minute, shall we? The NH35, diameter of 27mm, the SW200, 26mm, the Miyota 9039, again, under 30mm. In actual fact, there aren't many movements over 30mm, unless we're talking about pocket watch movements or George Daniels watches, very high-end ones. Stick around to the end because I'm going to show you something. Whoa, it's going to curl your toes. Now, a lot of people are blissfully unaware about the size of their movements in comparison to the size of their watch. If the watch's case diameter is 44mm, but it's using an NH35, which is only 27, how do you think that movement looks in the case? Well, to keep it in the case, what is used is a ring spacer. That keeps the movement secure in the middle of that case. It's essentially a horrible bit of plastic. And the bigger your watch case is in comparison to your movement, the bigger the piece of plastic you have hiding behind that case back. Now, when that movement is wedged in the middle of that big case back, the crown stem has got to travel an awful long way to get out one side. And in my eyes, the longer you have a crown stem, the more chance, if you were to knock your watch, the stem could snap away from the movement. Now, I've got a perfect example of a watch I'm talking about in this Seiko 5. I've never reviewed it because I never particularly like it. It's got Arabic numerals and I didn't particularly like the dial. However, this watch's case is over 40mm and it has a Seiko 7S26 movement inside. Now, it's got a display case back, but unfortunately what it's showing us is this watch is too big for this movement. And it looks silly floating in the middle of this case. And listen, we haven't talked about quartz watches yet. If you've got a watch over 40mm, well, take a look what's inside your watch. What do you think of that? Now, I've got to call out a brand here, right? They're usually on a shopping channel that I have seen in the past, and they're a company called Vostok Europe. Not Vostok, it's not the same company apparently. And they predominantly make diver watches with Seiko instrument movements. Take a look at this. 49mm dive watch. Big chunky beast. And guess what's in the back of it? A 27mm NH35. And we know that because we've got a display case back. And look at this. The amount of space that is in that case is pretty laughable. So when you look at your big watch, people, have a look at what's powering it. Because more often than not, with a big watch comes a big bit of plastic wedging it in. Now, yeah, we've got to talk about it. Here's the elephant in the room. A lot of people have bigger wrists these days, certainly compared to the 1940s, but that's not an evolution of humankind. Unfortunately, it's about diet. A lot of food has become, well, poisonous. Very highly processed with a lot of sugar. Back in the 90s, bless her mum, she didn't know what sugar actually could do to me in later life. But the average waist size of a male has definitely increased over the decades. There's no doubt about it. And I can understand when you've got a big wrist with a small watch slapped in the middle of it, maybe it doesn't look right to your eyes. Have you ever seen a watch brand show off a watch on a thick-set man's wrist? Don't think I ever have. In actual fact, if you look at Tudor's promotional photographs of their new watches, well, they're being worn by a man's wrist the size of mine and a lady's wrist as well. This one over top of the sleeve is laughable, to be fair, but I think that was a conscious plan by Tudor to not make the watch look massive on a woman's wrist on the publicity shots. Listen, all I'm saying, this is my opinion anyway, the watch's case should complement the watch's movement. All wristers have got to come together, haven't we? There's no point putting negative comments out. We've all got to live in harmony somehow, even when certain organisations are trying to get us at war with each other, and that goes for all walks of life. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you want a bit more of the Mad Watch Collector, click there. But if I've got you for a few more minutes, and I know I have, it's gorgeous round here, apart from the pylon. I mean, it's lovely apart from that pylon. God knows what radiation I'm getting from that right now. Anyway, go on, click that one. You'll love it. It's great. Go on, click it. Click it.